Boy, was I drunk. I was slurring my words as I waved the divorce papers in my wife's face. Just sign it and get it over with. I hate my life. I just can't get a break. I hate everyone and everything. Life just sucks right now. Soon as you sign the divorce papers, I can move away and move on with my crazy, stupid life. No, Stephen, I will not sign these papers. You're drunk, and I'm not going to do anything so that you can use that fornication against me later. What's your rush, anyways? When we got married, I vowed and promised to be faithful to you through sickness and in health, and I intend on keeping that promise. Stephen, sweetheart, you are sick right now, and you need help with your drinking addiction. All at once, my little daughter Destiny came running into the room. Daddy, Daddy, please don't yell at Mommy. Please, please, don't leave us. We need you here to be with us. Be our daddy. Well, if your mommy would be more cooperative, then I won't have to yell at her, I explained. But in my explanation, it was a hollow, empty response. Destiny continued to say in a very bold and sweet voice, Daddy, I'm praying for you to Jesus, and he can help you. He can help you not to be so mad at us all the time. I turned to her and said, well, Destiny, don't waste Jesus' time because I'm too far gone and not worth it. I'm a hopeless case. Don't waste Jesus' time. I assure you it's a complete waste of time. I don't care, Destiny said. I'm going to keep praying for you. Jesus hears me when I pray. Okay, then, I guess. I pushed her out of the way and I headed for the door as my daughter Destiny started to cry. I stumbled down the stairs and onto the front porch and onto the street. I really don't know where my car was because I was disoriented and very confused and, of course, very drunk. I headed up the alley to look for my car. As I was walking through the alley, there I saw a building that had been completely covered with darkness, except for one window, and it had a brilliant light coming through. And there was what I looked like a silhouette of a man with long hair behind the drapes. And the drapes fell to close. I could not understand the brilliance of the light. I had to blink like 5 times quickly to start, and I started squinting, so I had to check it out. Curiosity was just killing me. So I stumbled to the window that shined brightly, and beside it was an open door. So I thought, oh well, let's see what's going on with this brilliant light stuff. And who was the silhouette of a man with the long hair behind the drapes? I started opening the door and I said, hello? Hello? Anyone there? I stepped through the doorway and still filled with curiosity. All at once, as I stepped into the room, I became very dizzy because it looked like I was outside again. How can that be? How can I walk in through a door and find a bigger outdoor environment inside? I mean, wow! As I looked up to the sky, I saw beautiful yellow, orange, and brown sunset sky. I was surrounded by green fields, just beautiful rolling hills. But wait a minute, it was dark outside in the alley, and now it was surrounded by daylight. What in the world is going on? I was mesmerized by the beauty, and then I heard the ground start to shake and to rumble as if a stampede of horses were coming my way. I looked behind me, and a group of soldiers riding horseback were quickly coming towards me. "Get out of the way," they shouted as they rode by on their horses. One of the soldiers reached out and grabbed me and threw me on the horse's back. "Don't just stand there. There's lots of danger and you could seriously get hurt." Why are you just standing there?" I don't know. Well, then you can come with me. I'll ride with you to safety. We're going to the king's castle. Don't you know that Lucius and his men are about to attack?" "What? What are you talking about? What do you mean it's dangerous?" I asked. I felt shivers up and down my spine. Instantly, I forgot that I was drunk, or at least I sobered up instantly. I mean, it was a miracle. I was surrounded by a bright light, and I stayed focused on the horse ride so I would not fall off. Up ahead, I saw this huge castle. What? Who? How? That is one beautiful big castle. The castle rock was grayish blue, or I can't even describe the color. It was glowing in the distance. I could see the light inside the castle and in the courtyard. I could see from a very far away. It was brilliantly shining and glowing. The soldier said, "We should be in the castle very soon, so hang in there." "What's your name, my friend?" "My name is Stephen." "Good to meet you, Stephen." He was facing to the front of the horse as we were lunging forward at a great speed. "My name is Michael, and I'm one of the king's trusted servants. When he needs to send a message to the lower regions, I am dispatched. I love serving the king, and the king is a good and kind king. He loves his people, and his people love him. Wait till you meet him. You're going to love him too." Well, we quickly approached the castle and passed through the front multicolored, magnificent gates. As we entered through the gates, we were immediately welcomed with a hearty embrace from the other soldiers. I'm not really sure how to describe the multicolored front gates, other than it looked like, well, it was made of jasper or some onyx stone. And the cobblestone that the horses were walking on seemed to be like, well, like gold. No way it was really gold. I couldn't believe my eyes at first. Then I focused closer and just didn't understand how. How can this be actually gold? Oh well, whatever. I was painfully in awe of this majestic castle. I mean, what was there not to love? Walls made of jasper and streets of gold? Whoa! What in the world is going on with this place? I thought to myself. Just then a young man with a loving smile and a bright shiny silver armor came towards us. Michael spoke up immediately. "Your Majesty, allow me to introduce you to Stephen. Stephen, this is Prince Joshua." I didn't know if I should bow down or what, but before I could decide, the prince gave me the biggest hug and declared, "It was great to meet your acquaintance." He hugged me like I was his long lost brother. I know I was a commoner and a subject to him. I don't understand why he was embracing me like he was. I mean, we just met for the first time. Michael continued. "We picked him up on the way back to the castle from the lower regions of your kingdom, your Majesty." The prince looked me straight in my eyes and said, "Welcome, welcome, Stephen. We were actually expecting you." "Expecting me? What?" I responded with a bewildered look. "Your Majesty, you'll have to excuse Stephen. He's been very disoriented and confused all this whole time on this trip." The prince replied, "I get it. I understand. The castle can actually be very overwhelming sometimes. Either way, Stephen, welcome to our kingdom. Glad to have you as our guest. You are under our protection and completely safe now." Uh, Thank you, Your Majesty, as I crossed my hand over my heart. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I am so excited to be here. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next." The prince responded, "I know. You will be pleasantly surprised. There is always lots of exciting things happening around here. But now you'll have to excuse me, Stephen. We have a war to prepare for." "Absolutely, Your Majesty. I won't get in the way. But thank you for such a warm welcome." Prince Joshua smiled and nodded. His eyes just sparkled as he smiled. "I never saw that before in my life." Just then Michael motioned towards me and said, "Would you like to come into our strategy room with me? You would have to be strictly as an observer, of course. Is that okay with you?" "Yeah, that's all right with me," I responded. "I just couldn't wait to see what they're talking about, preparing for war and stuff. It doesn't make any sense, because they have such a huge castle with thick walls all the way around. There's no way anyone could ever break through the walls. No one would even think or dare to try, I would imagine." So we walked and walked through the corridors till we finally got to the strategy room. And as you could imagine, I never saw anything like that before either. This place was just incredible. I just don't get it. We walked into the room and there was this transparent floating thing in the middle of the room. That just blew me away. The sign, or whatever it was completely transparent, and the words were just floating in the air. The title was "Defeating Lucius and His Rebellious Friends." So we gathered in the room, surrounded the message board in the center. And then all at once, the king entered the room, and all of us fell down and knelt before him. "As you were, faithful men of the kingdom, let's get right down to the matters at hand. I have just been given word that Lucius is on his way and his men are going to attack very soon. Matter of fact, at the brink of dawn, they will be attacking our kingdom walls. They think that they're going to surprise us, but they have another thing coming. The element of surprise will definitely not be in their favor. It'll never happen. All authority will be given to my son, Prince Joshua. He will be leading the way to defend our kingdom and our honor. Gabriel and Michael will assist in the battle so that we can be sure of our victory over Lucius." The prince motioned to one of his men. "What do you think, Gabriel? What would be your strategy for defeating Lucius?" "Well, Your Majesty, I think that while still under the cover of darkness, the rebels want to attack us. We do have something as an option available to us with our positions in the castle and on the walls. The moment the sun rises, if we were to implement our laser mirrors as our way of defense, the reflection of the sun will pierce into the darkness and defeat our enemies with the light. Lucius and his followers will be easily defeated, Your Highness. This will also ensure that there will be no loss of life at all. If we implement this force of the light, no one will be hurt, but they would be blinded by the light." Michael was also nodding with his head in agreement. He said, "I love it, Gabriel. That is a great idea. Let's use the early morning sunrise to our advantage." Prince Jesus seemed very pleased with the idea, declared that this would be our method and strategy in our imminent battle. Let's go with that game plan, men. Arm yourselves and get your men ready for battle. Wow. Just witnessing all of this made my heart to pound really fast. It also made me shake my head and think twice. Am I dreaming or is this all for real? All the brave men excited with the strategy, and they left and exited the strategy room and gathered their soldiers. They all knew where they needed to be and advanced to their posts on top of the walls of the fortress. So I decided to follow Michael and his men. They moved so quickly that I could barely keep up with them. We reached our post, and from that vantage point on the top of the wall, I could see the dark shadows of the night. They were moving through the forest, past the trees. Lucius and his army were closing in on the outer perimeter of the castle walls. Just then the sun started to rise, and Prince Joshua motioned to his army to pull up and position their laser mirrors. They were like some kind of solar reflective crystal shields or something. The soldiers in Lucius' army were immediately blinded and came to an abrupt halt from the forward motion of the attack. They were just squinting and rubbing their eyes from the brilliant light. This forced them to immediately drop their weapons so they can use their hands to cover their faces. The prince again motioned to the royal army to go down and pick up the soldiers, as their defeated foe were just rubbing their eyes. The powers of darkness were defeated, and the powers of light have won. With their heads bowed down, Lucius and his men were escorted by the hands of Gabriel and Michael. They were brought before the king and the prince. They were brought to Judgment Hall in the courts within the kingdom. Prince Joshua stood up, and everyone fell on their knees. It was a great sight to behold. So then Prince Joshua proclaimed that on the accounts of infidelity and non-allegiance, and more promptly, and because of the treason and sovereign interference, Lucius, you will be stripped of your nobility and your honor. Lucius, you are no longer a part of the dynasty of our beloved kingdom. You are no longer welcome here. You will have limited capacity to roam in my kingdom. I spare your life now, but not in good graces, but rather in shame and in your and your men's dishonor. As it was decreed by my son, so shall it be, declared the king. And the trumpets blew, so shall it be, everyone in the room said. Let the record show the consequences of the rebellion of Lucius and his men. The guards took Lucius and his commanders out of the courtroom. With their heads continuing to be bowed down in shame, I could see that Lucius looked up as he passed Michael. As they were leaving the judgment hall, his eyes met with that of Michael's eyes. I could clearly see, as they locked in a gaze, Lucius had a dark, beady eyes full of hate. That was very awkward to watch and observe. I do not like this Lucius guy. Glad he was defeated in shame. Well, you could imagine the celebration and the rejoicing that started. And that evening they had a victory celebration, and the whole kingdom showed up. There were colors of lights everywhere. I have never seen these colors before. Could not even try to describe them. I just don't have the words. Everyone was feasting and celebrating the victory. The music was playing with happy melodies. The air was just so electric. My heart was full of joy as I just observed all this love that was flowing between the king, the prince, and the kingdom. I looked over and I saw the prince, and he was dancing with a group of children. They were skipping and hopping and singing as they followed his lead. I saw the king as he was sitting at the head of the table in the banquet hall. He also was full of joy and laughter while observing the festivities taking place in his castle. Still passionately dancing with children, Prince Joshua looked over to his father and yelled out, "Love you, Father." The king responded, I love you too, son. Never in my life have I ever felt this much peace and great joy. You can plainly see that everyone in the kingdom was truly in love with each other. I looked over and glanced at the Prince Joshua, only to find him looking back at me, smiling from ear to ear. Although we were far away from each other, I could clearly hear in a still small voice in my ears, the prince said, I love you too, Stephen. All at once, I was overwhelmed with love, and I just started to cry. My eyes were filled with tears, and my vision was blurred, but I couldn't help but see the brilliant light blazing through open door next to me. Oh, not again, I muttered to myself as I walked over to the huge wooden door. I just had to go through it, so I went through it, and I was back in the alleyway beside the door as I walked through earlier. However, the light was gone, and I was completely alone and surrounded by darkness. My eyes immediately were drawn to the glow of my house. So I ran as fast as I could, hopped onto the porch, and opened the front door. My wife, I couldn't believe my eyes. My wife's eyes were swollen from crying, and she was still holding on to the divorce papers in her hands that I gave her. I grabbed them from her and started to rip them into pieces as I fell to my knees. Her face had an expression of shock, and she braced herself. I pleaded with her, I am so sorry. Can you ever find it in your heart to forgive such a fool like me? She responded in disbelief. What is going on, Stephen? I don't understand at all. Just 3 minutes ago, you were here drunk and threatening me with the divorce papers, and now you're completely sober and ripping them up. Why? Why are you begging me for your forgiveness? What in the world is going on? What made this drastic transformation, Stephen? Through my tears, I could only respond, well, I met the prince.